Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you're all having a great day. And today, what I want to talk about is something a bit more serious, um, maybe a bit more triggering, but not in a bad way. And it's pain, suffering, depression. Just if you are in a hard spot, or anytime you've been in a hard spot where there might be no positive outlook, where you may feel like you're stuck, like things are not going to get better, things are not going to improve. And I've been in that state before, and I think a lot of us have, whether on a massive scale where it's completely crippling, or just on a scale where life can begin to seem kind of hopeless, or it can start to feel like there's a filter, like almost like you're detached from it. I think there are a lot of levels, and this can also be part of depression, but I don't think it always needs to be necessarily a medical chemical level imbalance with you. I think it can just be lifestyle, but we're not going to go too deep in that. What I want to talk is when you're in that state. Is when you're in that state, a lot of your thinking and a lot of your actions may start to change. Like personally, like I know if I was drinking constantly, like you might not think much about your actions, you might not think long term, you might start thinking short term. And you might, on a worse level, if you're really down at the bottom, you might start thinking like, well, any day is going to be the last, whether it's yourself or another action coming upon you that ends it all. You might start thinking it's gonna be over any time now. What's the point? There's no point in trying. Or if it's, I don't care anymore, I don't feel anything, I'm so sad, I'm so angry, I'm so depressed, I don't feel anything, I don't care, I don't need to get up from my bed, I don't want to do anything. And when you get into that state, you start to make decisions like that. You won't do something you might normally enjoy, and that might actually bring you out of that state because you're just so wrapped up into it. You're not enjoying the suffering. I don't want to say that anyone enjoys it, but I think when you start to feel that emotion, you end up subconsciously clinging to it, and you start making decisions that make you feel worse because you don't care anymore. And when you're in that state, I'm going to say something something that might not sound like it makes sense, but when you're in that state, you are very lucky. You are at a state where you are very vulnerable, you are very fragile right now, or have been. And this is where a lot of great change can happen. This is where you can really transform. For anyone who's ever seen Fight Club, one of the main concepts, this isn't really a spoiler, is how they were trying to reach like rock bottom. They kept kind of doing things that were collapsing their commercial lifestyle, their capitalistic lifestyle around them of consumerism, of materialism. They were trying to get away from that and reach what they called rock bottom. And this is a spoiler, so it's an old movie if you haven't seen it by now. But they end up becoming terrorists. They get really low to the bottom, and the movie takes it to an extreme, but they really wanted to achieve this rock bottom state. And in the movie, they gave up their lives. They started throwing they gave up like everything they owned, their identities, and they took it to an extreme. But I think a lot of us do get to that state where we don't consider our lives really alive anymore. It's physically we are functioning, but we're going through the motions, essentially waiting to die. And that sounds sad, but even if you're not considering suicide, or at least not on a deeper level really planning on partaking in the action of doing it, but if you're doing activities that may hurt you, like drugs or alcohol, that's an easy one where you can actually see how you may end up dying very soon. Or if you're just so depressed where you see your life is falling apart because you're not keeping your life going, like if you're depressed and laying in bed, or if something bad really happened to you where there is a big change in your life and it feels like everything is crumpling around you, whether it's your own doing, or circumstances you may not have had much control in, you can end up making it worse. And this is when you're in that state, if you can make it much worse, and it may start to feel hopeless. But also you can realize that you can take your power back at this moment. Going full circle to the movie, they wanted to get to that state because that's when they felt free. They felt like they were slaves, that they had to be held into these ideas of materialism, of consumerism, and they wanted to break free from that. That was the theme of the movie. But then, like, how in, if anyone who's read Siddhartha or read Buddhist concepts, some people take it to the extreme, like, who really dive into it and they start giving up their life, and like they'll, I don't want to call them beggars because they're more holy men, but they'll go from like place to place and people will feed them. A lot of different religions have similar concepts, but they're giving up everything to surrender, to get to let go of their identities. In a sense, I'm very simplifying it, putting it in a nutshell to relate to your situation. But in your situation, you may not be at these levels where you're giving away your objects or giving up your life, but your life is reaching that level, that bottom level. But the difference is where they are choosing to have nothing, and you feel like you have nothing left to lose. Those are the same levels of thinking, but they are thinking about it a completely different way. These people that want to go there, now, I'm going to try and separate myself from the Fight Club on this one because they do turn to terrorists, and I'm not suggesting that. But as far as like the religions where the monks may like travel and give up everything, they're trying to achieve enlightenment or whatever end goal they have in mind, depending on the religion. And I'm assuming many of them are very happy with the lifestyle. I don't know how many change their mind halfway through and don't want to do it anymore. But they think about it in such a way, because you may think, I have nothing to lose, life is over, I don't care anymore. They are trying to achieve nothing, or they're trying to give up their surrender to everything they have, so that way they can reach and find the deeper, whatever they're looking for. There's so many religions, I don't want to decipher them all. But where they go is what they're trying to go their own direction. But where you are now is when you feel like you've lost everything. Now you have nothing left. If you have nothing left to lose, you also have everything to gain. Because when you're going about these things, if you're depressed or have struggle with substances, you're probably wasting a lot of time and making a lot of decisions that are harmful to your life because you're in these states, whether it's to keep consuming the substances or just to not get up and do something with your life because you're so upset. And when you're doing that, you're wasting a lot of time. And I think you can see how you are wasting time and admit that without really upsetting yourself that you are wasting time. But when you're wasting this time, you may say, I'm wasting time, I'm falling behind on things. But the way you should look at it is when you stop doing these habits that are wasting time, you have a lot of free time because you've been doing nothing with your time. You've been doing nothing productive. So now you have all this time that you can make the changes. And when you have nothing left to lose, people often start doing bad things. Like, I have nothing left to lose, I'll drink more, I'll stay in bed more. But if you have nothing left to lose truly, then how can you suffer from doing something positive, from making positive changes? Things aren't going to get worse because you start being more productive. Things won't get worse because you want to be more successful. Things won't get worse because you decide to be nicer to people. Things won't get worse because you start meditating. Things won't get worse because you start drinking. And on a deeper level, I think most people understand this. They just feel so trapped, or that they don't care. But when they don't care is when they are free. Is if you don't care anymore, you're free. And if you say, oh, I do care a little bit, then if you care that little bit, you need to understand that you are wasting that little bit. You are ruining that little bit by doing nothing. And if you believe in reincarnation, I talk about this a lot, just the idea of that there is no escaping it. And if you believe in karma, it's a lot more common. If you don't die, if you do not die, then you are just wasting your time. So unless you plan on dying, and I do not condone suicide, that's not the point of this. Unless you do plan on dying, then you better start making changes, because otherwise you're just prolonging your suffering for no reason. An example I think is a good example is if anyone ever in school, we've all been to school, have on the last day of school, it feels so much more fun, because if you've ever gone to the last day and you say, whatever, I'm leaving tomorrow, I won't see him for months, and you say, I'm just gonna be myself. And you go, and even if you're not shy, you're just a little different, and everyone's talking to each other, like you're doing fun stuff, like you're all eating popsicles if you're like in elementary school, and it's always the best because everyone feels like they're friends. And then you come back and it's everyone puts their guard up again. And it's because in those moments, people don't care because they're leaving. They're not gonna see the people they don't know very well over the summer. So they feel free. And you're in a situation like that. If you feel like, and this can apply to anyone, you do not need to be suffering, but this, I think it's people who already know this who aren't suffering may not be watching this video. But when you're in this situation where you're suffering, think of it like it's the last day of school, or any near-death experience, if anyone's ever had something like that happen to them, where your life moving forward can be free like it is on that last day of school all the time. Especially if you've been to that point where you don't care, you've given up hope, you may have become suicidal. When you're in that moment, then your life really becomes free after that. You just have to decide to think of it in that sense, that I can keep prolonging my suffering by not taking action, or I can take the action because I have nothing less to lose. My suffering can't get worse. Life can't get worse. This sucks right now. Even if you know it can get worse, if you're not, like, you may have a home, things may be okay, and you know, I'm not homeless, I have food. But in your mind, things are getting worse, and you may not be at that bottom level, but this should be your bottom level. If you're at this level right now and you're suffering, this can be your set point for life, that when you start improving, when you decide to make those changes because you don't care anymore, if you can make a positive change to end your bad habit, things will only get better. And you'll see that. You'll take that one little step up. And when you do that, you'll see where you were and know that you never have to go back to that. You will never need to go back to that emotional state. And you will realize that now you are free forever. And it's because of your suffering. You'll look back from that a year or even days, maybe weeks after, a short amount of time after you start to make those few positive changes, you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I'm so glad I don't need to live like that anymore. You'll have that power back. You'll see where you were. You'll realize that you have had good times in life. You've had things that have done great things in your life, but those were not as important as that awful time. This state that you may be in now is amazing. I'm glad of all the suffering I've had because I can look back at that and know it's over, and I never need to go to that situation again because I've learned and I've changed my habits. And I see this video is getting long, so I'm gonna stop it here because I think I've discussed it enough. But to anyone who is suffering, this was really for you. And I want you to know that this is an important time in your life. This is a great moment for you because you can choose two paths, two mindsets, and it will really define the rest of your life from this moment going forward. And it may not feel like it, even when you're improving, you may not be saying this is the greatest moment of my life, but it will be, because because to have a great life, you need to decide on it first. When your life is great, you're not going to be saying, this is the greatest moment of my life. You're going to appreciate the moment that brought you there. The moment that made you great is this moment that you are suffering right now. People who haven't suffered haven't been through what you've been through. They haven't felt the pain you've felt. Even if they've been through different situations, your situation is yours. And you're going to take that with you for life. And it's going to be how you define these moments and how you decide to think about these moments, the meaning you give them, that's going to set you free, or it's just going to keep you going down a bad road until you decide to make that change. So I'm gonna end it here. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you learned from this video, and feel better, everyone.